Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the Pied Piper of Pasadena, Part 8. This is the story of Dean Corll. When we last left off, we had talked about how Jeffrey Conan, on his way hitchhiking to see his parents for the weekend, would actually be abducted, raped, and killed by asphyxiation by Dean Corll. And after he would kill Conan, he would also start renting out a boat shed by Southwest Storage by Mamie Mariner. And he would start using boat shed number 11 that we had talked about in the beginning of the videos. After he had killed Conan, he would also buy an apartment or rent an apartment in Yorktown. On December 14th, 1970, James Glass and Danny Yates, both 14, would attend a religious rally with their family. While also attending this rally, there they would also find David Brooks. And Brooks, who knew Glass, would approach both boys and would talk to them away from the family and tell them that later on he would be attending a party at Dean Corll's place, which Dean Corll was infamously known as the Candy Man. So it should be fair to assume that while the religious proceedings were going on, both boys would accompany Brooks to Dean Corll's apartment, who lived in Yorktown at the time. Both parents of Glass and Yates would also tell police later that the last time they had seen the boys, they had seen them as if they were walking to the bathroom with David Brooks. And just like most of the kids in this story, they would just vanish into thin air. It should be known about Dean Corll as a way that he would lure in kids. He would first entice them with promises of drinking alcohol or doing illicit substances such as smoking weed. And this would be one way he would get the kids to come to his apartment or go into his van, and he would get them to the point where they would pass out from intoxication or inebriated. Or if he did not do those things, he would sometimes often pull out a pair of handcuffs to show them an escape artist tactic that was often used by serial killer John Wayne Gacy. And if neither one of these things would work, Corll would actually overpower the kids and handcuff them to his makeshift torture board that he would have suspended from the ceiling from wherever he was living at. Once Corll had gotten both Yates and Glass passed out from getting drunk, he would then turn around and pay David Brooks $400, as he had promised, $200 per child. And in today's money, the $400 would roughly be right around $3,000. And Brooks would later say that he would leave before any of the torturing or killings would begin. And while they were passed out, Dean Corll would take this opportunity to handcuff each boy to the torture board that he had suspended from the ceiling. And before they would awake, he would also strip them both naked. Once Glass and Yates had awoken, Dean Corll would begin torturing both boys, mostly through electrocution with jumper cables. After he was done torturing them, he would both forcibly sodomize both Glass and Yates. And after he was done raping both boys, he would then take a nylon stocking and kill them by asphyxiation. After he had done killed both boys, he would then take a plastic sheet and wrap the boys in plastic sheets and put them in the trunk of his car. He would then drive down to boat shed number 11 and bury them in the back of the boat shed. David Brooks would assist with this. Glass and Yates' parents would approach the police a few days later to report that their children had been missing. And like I said earlier in the video, where they had seen Brooks leading the boys away to the bathroom. They would even use this story, but police would say that there was not enough evidence to prove that foul play had been done. And because there was no sign of foul play, there would not be an investigation, and thus they would mark both boys as runaways, even would not even classify them in the same category, and would say each child had specifically ran away. After the murder of Glass and Yates, Dean Corll would actually move again, and this time he would buy a flat apartment in Magnum Road. And one thing that can be said about this apartment is it would set right across of a bowling alley called Delmar Lanes. Earlier in the videos, if you look at part 1, we had briefly talked about Donald and Jerry Waldrop. Donald Waldrop, who is 15, and Jerry Waldrop, who is 13. And on January 30th, 1971, they would actually be dropped off at a friend's house by their father. And when both boys would walk up to the house, they had realized that their friend was not home. And being that both boys were very interested about starting a bowling league, they would begin to start walking down to Delmar Lanes. Once they would walk into the bowling alley at Delmar Lanes, they would be approached by, again, David Brooks. And Brooks would walk up to both boys and ask them if they would be interested in smoking some weed. Both boys said they would, so they followed Brooks outside, where he would lead them to a windowless white van across the street where they would find Dean Corll sitting in the driver's side. After the boys had smoked weed with Dean Corll and David Brooks inside the van, Dean Corll would invite the boys into the apartment to drink some alcohol. So they would actually get out of the van and begin walking up to the apartment where Dean would supply them with alcohol and more weed. David Brooks would also say this would be the very first time that he would actually stay after being paid the $400. And he would actually take part in the murder of these two boys. Once the boys would pass out, Dean Corll would handcuff both boys to the torture board that was suspended from the ceiling, and he would strip them both naked. And when they awoke, he would begin torturing them for hours, even subjecting them to genital mutilation. After he would do this, he would forcibly sodomize both boys. After he was done graping both boys, he and David Brooks would actually go to bed, where both Waldrop kids would be still suspended from the ceiling all night. The next morning when they awoke, Dean Corll would tell both boys, "If one of you can kill the other, I'll let the other one go." And there, Dean Corll and David Brooks would watch as both boys would use their one free hand to punch each other to the point of exhaustion. After Dean was satisfied with watching the boys beat each other, he would then forcibly sodomize both boys again before taking his nylon stocking out and killing them by asphyxiation. He would wrap the boys up on a plastic sheet, put them in the back of his car, and bury them in the back of his boat shed. And once again, David Brooks would assist with this. After Dean would pay Brooks another $400, he was very true to his promise to David Brooks from last September, and he would buy him a brand new 1971 Corvette. Mr. Waldrop would, as the other parents, go to the police. And once again, the police, instead of doing any investigation or any kind of police work whatsoever, they would file both boys as runaways. But Mr. Waldrop would actually go to the police station and encourage the police to find his children, and often would tell the police that they needed to speed up the process. To which the police would look at Mr. Waldrop and tell him to stop wasting police time. I think this, out of the entire story, like, everything that Dean Corll had done was appalling, but the fact that the police on every single one of these cases did nothing. And this concerned parent who's looking for his child and his children, the police had the audacity to say to stop wasting police time. That blows my mind. Now that Brooks had a car, he would regularly be seen driving around. And this is where he would start talking to a gas station clerk, Randall Harvey.